Michelle, you know, the community of Klerksdorp feels like it's not really a loss. The same sentiments that were shared by the mayor when we spoke to you earlier. I've come across a few people and they've told us that he has lived his life and he has fought his fight and it is now time for him to rest. Really a feeling of gratitude and a celebration of life more than a loss. But I'm just going to bring in this different context now. Where we are standing right now, the area is called Newzroom, but it once was called Makweteng. I'm going to ask my colleague Zwela Kgosilentswe to show you around. In the area of Makweteng is where the Archbishop was born, bred and buttered, so to speak. This was a community that was predominantly where poor black people lived, particularly people who lived in the and worked in the mines. As you know, that Klerksdorp is a former mining area. People who worked as domestic workers or as gardeners in the suburbs. However, in 1941, under the Group Areas Act, the Makweteng village was demolished and the communities were forcefully removed. And that is when the Arch and his family then moved out of the then Western Transvaal to what is now called Gauteng. In fact, Michelle, where we are standing right now, as my colleague Zwela comes to us, is the Archbishop Desmond Tutu Street, which was renamed in 2001 to honor and celebrate the life of the Arch. Right now, I'm going to bring into the conversation one of the residents of the new suburb, that is Newzroom, which is now an all-inclusive community where black people, coloreds, Indians, whites, and others live in harmony, so to speak, with each other. I'm going to bring in Ntate Morero Kgechane, who's a resident here. He's also a principal of a local school here. So if one wants a history lesson or two, this is the right man to speak to. Ntate Morero, good afternoon. Tell us about this area where you live in, where really one of the greats of greatest South Africans was born and bred and raised.
Good afternoon, madam. We are proud to be living in an area where one of the heroes of the South African nation, Bishop Desmond Tutu, was born. We are privileged that we are staying in the area around here called Newzroom, where he made his mark before they were moved over to Makweteng in 1941.
And I understand that there was plans to erect a monument here. I've been speaking to the mayor of the city of Matlosana, and he tells me that those plans are still in process. How long have you, as the community, had to wait to see that come to life?
For the past 3-4 years, there was some report in the newspaper that in the area just over there, the Desmond Tutu Memorial Heritage was supposed to be built. We are still waiting for that, and it's one of the issues which we'll really be proud of, given the role Desmond Tutu played in our community.
And lastly, it's one important day in the history of South Africa today, being Boxing Day, being the day of reconciliation. And we remember the Archbishop as one of those who forged or led the talks, you know, if we're speaking about the TRC Commission for reconciliation. How significant is it that he passes on this very day?
Oh, we really saddened by the death of the Arch, given the role he played in the TRC, given the fact that he was the chairperson of the TRC. He was a man who was very reconciliatory. Even during difficult times of the struggle, during difficult times of apartheid, he was a lone voice even when some of us were not there. We really saddened really by the fact that Desmond Tutu is no longer around.
And I mean, I can only imagine that this is the kind of history lessons that in your school you would endeavor to instill in our young ones to preserve the history of South Africa and of this particular community.
Children need to be taught history. Children need to be taught where we are coming from. Children need to be taught people who fought for this country, especially at this day and in era, because it is through history that they will know where we are coming from and help us shape the country in which we are living in today. But we are very proud. We are very proud of this day, very proud, even sad as we may be, but we are proud of the role Desmond Tutu played around here.
And lastly, Ntate Kgechane, before we let you go, what is his legacy for you? What is that one thing that you will teach generation after generation?
Desmond Tutu was a very courageous man. He used to stand up and say his word. He was not afraid to express his feeling. Even in the new democracy, when things didn't go right, he was able to speak out and say, this is wrong. This is one of the strong points I've admired the Archbishop for. He was very strong and he was very resolute in whatever he was doing. We really lost a good man in this country, a true patriot.
And speaking lastly about, his voice even within the democracy, he was very vocal about challenging the ANC to be careful. In fact, I remember he once likened the leadership of the ANC to Egypt's Hosni Mubarak, Libya's Muammar Gaddafi, and the likes, who enjoyed a lot of support and a lot of numbers of the people, but who were ultimately toppled. And now this is somewhat similar to what has happened to the city of Matlosana, isn't it? Because now the city is under the leadership of the DA.
No, the city is not under the leadership of DA. We are still ANC-led. Still ANC-led, if my memory serves me well. We are the ANC-led in this city. But I like the fact that Desmond Tutu stood up and say things the way they need to be told. Never afraid to be serving one government or observing whatever they were saying. He was one guy who was very vocal. But as I'm talking to you now, the city is not DA-led.
Yes, I think it's particularly because of the Mr. James Letsuta, who's a DA member. Ntate Morero, thank you so much for the time that you have spent with us here on Newzroom Afrika. Michelle, that's it from us here in Klerksdorp, in Nizahov, which was once known as Makweteng, where the Archbishop Desmond Tutu was raised. Thank you.